Gold settling at a 2-week low, but oil losing 5.6% this week. Oil is not a great story today because we have a stronger dollar, but that is hardly the story at all. It's the tech rally keeping its momentum through the weekend. Is that the question, or will next week's Fed meeting put a damper on investor sentiment? The big Fed decision arriving October 28th. So let's bring in the traders at the New York Stock Exchange and the CME Group. It's the floor show, Teddy. What a day compared with yesterday. The two together bringing a massive number of points here. What do you think happens starting next week as we spin it forward on this Friday?
Well, we're smack dab in the middle of third quarter earnings, and there's no question that, last night after that big up day, you had Amazon, Microsoft, and those earnings and Google, they just blew the numbers out. Those stock, next week, pardon me. I think most folks now have sort of given up. Following through today, we had, some interesting news out of China. There was a little easing in China, which the market interpreted positively.
Very positive.
And the momentum continues. Now, it's funny with the Fed meeting next week, pardon me. I think most folks now have sort of given up on the Fed and think that their hands are tied and they'll do nothing about interest rates. And I think that's the expectation. And I think that's also helping the market a little. If, in fact, that turns out not to be the case, we could have an entirely different story. But we're not going to see that till the middle or towards the end of next week.
Well, exactly. And let me just give a shout out to McDonald's. While up just 1.5%, guys, McDonald's is a widely held stock 2 days in a row. Great numbers. So there seems to be suddenly this sunshine out from the clouds. Trent, the China story definitely helped the picture. Overnight, China cut 25 basis points off its one-year lending rate. So now they're at 4.33%, but ours are at nearly zero at this point. So let's put the Fed aside and simply talk about how we expect this kind of rally to continue. At some point we do hit some resistance, do we not?
I think we do, Liz, and it's difficult to talk about one without touching on the other because I do feel this is a largely Fed-driven rally. The news of the PBOC, and then yesterday, don't forget, we had Draghi talking extremely dovishly about the ECB's actions in December. We have the BOJ easing as well, and this divergence in policies worldwide from the big central banks, it's making it difficult for the Fed to pull the trigger here. We got the dollar, which you mentioned.
How can they do that, though, Trent? How can they stay stuck in the mud when we have a very strong stock market? We had very solid existing home sales. In fact, they erased the August problems, and September came in great. First-time jobless claims at 42-year lows, and the Fed just sits there and says we still can't do it?
Well, I hear you, Liz, but if you look at what the Fed's communicated, what's the one area that we haven't made enough strides in? It's inflation. Okay, and we got the dollar trading at a 2-month high today with what we're seeing going on globally here. If they raise rates, don't think the dollar won't shoot up past 100, that dollar index. That's going to make these inflation targets even more difficult to attain.
Okay.
I just think they're in a really difficult spot here where their hands might be tied, and that's, I think Teddy, mentioned that as well, and I believe that that divergence is it.
You give Teddy credit, and the head starts to expand. Yeah,
we
exactly.
got to remember, Liz, I normally argue with Teddy, so I have to every once in a while agree with him.
I know, you young pup arguing with Teddy. Let me get to Ira Epstein. The Fed is not the story today. Let's just cut to that chase. The story is that a very important piece of our economy, and that is high tech, and let's give a nod to Facebook, hitting another all-time high here. These are viable companies. They do employ Americans, and what do we have here? A great session, Ira. What do you interpret looking ahead?
It's called a surprise. It's called a confluence, if you will. Everything right is happening at one time. It's China. Let's call this Hurricane Draghi, not Hurricane Patricia. He started this whole thing. Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
it carried on
let's just remind
today
people,
because of Amazon.
yesterday the European Central Bank said we're in it to win it all the way through. We're going to be stimulating the economy, and we're going to be adding liquidity or money into the system through way past September of next year. Go ahead, Ira.
Now you've also got Japan next week. Why is nobody talking about that? The odds are super strong that they're going to embark on further asset buying. So you're getting everybody stepping in. You've got the confluence of a currency war again for all purposes, drives the dollar higher, and people want to own U.S. stocks, probably property, and things are just taking off for us. But that higher dollar, it puts that whole damper on inflation, and I think the Fed is caught. I don't think they're going to move at all anytime soon. It'll be next year. I don't think December.
What did we learn from this? That you guys the experienced traders with, what, a century of experience between you, thanks to Teddy, certainly.
Two centuries.
It all comes back down to the Fed. Great to see all of you. Have a good weekend. Teddy Weisberg, Trent, and Ira, lovely to have you. The closing bell, we are 52 minutes away.